Hello and welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will, and with me as always is Andy. Good morning. Oh, Andy's not here. Oh no. So, we went axe throwing, Andy and I and our wives. And Andy and I made a small bet. And it was only during one throw. So if you've never gone axe throwing, it's basically darts, but with axes. You usually play the same games. This bullseye is worth, so many points and so on and so forth. And you throw twice when it's your turn. At least at the place we went to. And we made the bet that if he scored more points at that point, I would have to do this by myself. And I cannot remember what I bet. It doesn't matter now because I lost. So I'm doing this by myself. He doesn't think I'm going to do it, but here I am. So it'll probably be a bit shorter than normal because I'm a little more succinct than he is. I thought I would talk about, because I've been seeing a lot of emails in my spam mail about best exercises for posture, best exercises for whatever. It's more of single exercises. And I thought I would talk about at least a couple of the ones that I think are bad and why that's kind of just clickbaity. I mean, it obviously is, because there's never one thing that is just all encompassing good. The first one I always see, especially like if you go on to Reddit, which you shouldn't, it's just it's not all bad, but there's just a lot of just stuff on there. Anyway, Reddit is basically just a website that is just a bunch of forums, and anyone can create them. And if you go on the posture one, there is an exercise that people always suggest. It's called the face pull. What that is if you can do it sitting or standing, and the resistant band or weight or whatever, and you pull it is out in front of you, and you're pulling it, but like a row. So it's like instead of bringing your elbows to your side, you bring your elbows up real high, kind of like, and you're bringing the band or whatever to your face. So that's why they call it a face pull. If you're doing it exactly correctly, it's good, but 95% of the time you're going to engage your upper traps, which is kind of detrimental to good posture, because 95% of us have over engaged upper traps. Upper traps are basically, when you ask for a massage, that's what you're getting, is you want your upper traps massaged. Those are the muscles that are on either side of your neck. Another common one, not just this one, but any like flexing. So when you search for it, a lot of times you'll see what's called child pose. And what that is, it's a yoga move, but it's basically just the position of basically with your chest into your knees, and you're kneeling on the floor, and you're just bending over, so to speak. It's not good, because it might feel good to you in the interim, but unless you do a lot of the reverse during your day, it's stretching out your back that way is just taking a rubber band that's already stretched and trying to stretch it more. It may internally feel good, but it's not good for it. Same goes for like you'll see like just like a standing double hamstring stretch. So like you'll see like people just like bending over and trying to keeping their knees straight and try to touch their toes, and that's not necessarily good either. There are lots of good information out there, and ones you need to be careful. Like the face pull is a good one, but you just need to not really avoid, but you need somebody there to kind of spot you for the first few times you do it, to make sure that you feel the correct motion of it and you understand how it should be moving in a correct way, and not over engaging into the wrong muscles. So you won't necessarily hurt yourself, but you won't be being as effective as you should be with the exercise, if that makes any sort of sense. One of the other common ones that I see is planks. Again, planks are great, but if you're not holding a good position, so if you don't know, a plank is basically like you can be on your elbows, you can be up or down, but it's basically like getting you into a push-up position and just kind of holding it and letting gravity just kind of do the work for you, and your muscles have to basically hold you up. Great exercise. But if you are sitting there in a plank position with your butt up in the air, and you're going to want to do that because it's easier, it's not necessarily better for you, because it's strengthening you in a position that is already bad for you. Not really bad for you, but one that you're kind of like encouraging a position that is bad, that you're trying to get out of, if that makes any sort of sense. You're trying to encourage strength in a neutral position, so like a standing position, upright position. But if you're you're strengthening yourself and you're kind of in a bent, flexed position, it's not helping you, if that makes sense. It may feel like it's strengthening you, and it probably is, but you may feel like after you did it, like you did something, but it's not necessarily the best for you. There are no, and everyone should know this by now, there are no quick fixes. There's no one specific thing for specific people, or that covers everyone. Everyone's a bit different. I can mostly say for everybody that they need, posterior strengthening. What that means is like your shoulder blade muscles, so like your rhomboids and your trapezius, like your lower traps and your middle traps. I know this because, as at least a Western society, we spend a lot of our time sitting at a desk, bent over like that, and those muscles are overly stretched. You can strengthen those in like a million different ways. So there's no best way to do it. And everybody's a little bit differently. Everybody responds to it differently. So another reason this is kind of bugging me is because I just got done watching The Witcher, which I'll talk about in a minute. And every time you use a new movie or something comes out where an actor gets completely jacked for it, they're like, oh, here's the workout that they did. Whatever keeps you interested in exercising is the most important thing, as opposed to what you do, really. There's no specific thing that's going to get you ready and ripped or whatever. It's just keeping you on the tracks going forward, as opposed to anything else. And I forget what I was talking about, but it doesn't really matter. There's no specific thing that is going to get you perfectly postured, which is, again, we've talked about posture before. There's no specific thing that is correct posture, and as long as you're doing it in a way, you're strengthening whatever you're trying to strengthen in a correct way without overemphasizing other muscles, then you'll be fine. And that basically wraps up my rant, or only idea of what to talk about when I'm by myself. And I'm amazed I was able to speak this long without somebody asking me questions or for me to bounce off of. If you have any questions, or you want to know if an exercise is good, or if you wanted to talk to me or Andy about what would actually be specifically good for you, you can email us at DIYtherapy206@gmail.com. You can follow us at either Instagram on DIYtherapy206, or I don't usually talk about it too much on Instagram or Twitter, but I goof around a bit on Twitter if you want to follow us on that. And we're also on Facebook, where I put a bunch of other exercise stuff too. Thus, that ends this portion of it, and I now know everyone will turn off because I'm going to talk about The Witcher. If you haven't seen this or heard about this, it is a Netflix series. It is a sword and sorcery kind of thing. It was a book first, and then it became video games, I believe. I enjoyed it. Henry Cavill growls his way through 95% of it, like legitimately. Like 50% of his dialogue is actually just this, where he just says, he growls at people. It's got magic in it. It was good. It was like over 3 different timelines, and they weren't specific about it, but you can kind of tell after a certain point. Very well acted, looked really good. I kind of got not lost, but lost interest towards the end because there was like a big war battle thing that happened, and I just didn't know where anything was, who anybody was, why anything mattered, and I just didn't particularly care because it just, I didn't know anything. And the main characters that you follow are not really tied to any of those places that are either getting invaded or invading or whatever. So you kind of didn't really matter. One of the characters was, but she was basically just a mystery box running around. So you had no idea who she was. I'm sure people who read the books and have played the video games understood it and made way more sense to them. But that's kind of bad storytelling if you're relying on like a crutch, other things to tell the story for you, and you just want to tell the bits and pieces that you want to tell. There is also a weird thing with the magic because one of the main characters is a girl who becomes a mage, like a magic user, and she goes to basically Hogwarts, and they present that there are rules to the magic, and then there's a give and a take, and that if you want this, you have to sacrifice this other thing. So if you want to levitate this rock, you have to either sacrifice part of your life force or arm or whatever, or you can, sacrifice this other life force to do the thing. If you want to look pretty, then you have to sacrifice the ability to produce life. To there's give and take, which I like that. That makes a lot of sense. There would be that give and take to it. Then all of a sudden, midway through it, they just decide it's going to be video game logic, where if you've ever played a video game with magic or any of those things, there's just like a meter, and you only have this much meter, and every time you use it, the meter goes down, and that's the way they kind of just present it from that point on. So there's like, I don't understand. So there's less tension, but there's more tension. It's weird. Because at the end, there's a big battle with mostly mages against a big old army. And there's no consequences to them casting any of the spells that they do, except that they just might run out of the magic. But you don't see their health bar or whatever bar, magic bar, so there's no real tension. You just know that eventually maybe they will. But also, they can do a lot of really crazy stuff, so it's like, I don't know. I like it when there are rules in a fantasy world or a sci-fi world. Rules are important because otherwise nothing makes sense or nothing matters. And that's kind of what happened at the end of this. Still enjoyed it. Towards the end, it was because the first few episodes are basically just like the main character, Henry Cavill, who is a Witcher, is basically just a monster hunter. And that sort of like is basically Monster of the Week, and he's going to certain areas, and they have a monster problem, and he kind of solves it either through killing the monster or resolving it in a not necessarily peaceful, but like a more civilized way, as opposed to just killing the monster. He just solves the problem, whether by curing the monster or whatever. And then it just turns into this like big war battle thing that, again, just didn't care about. I would recommend it. It was worth the watch just for the acting and the visuals of it, because it was impressive. It's impressive what they can do now on TV, really, is what coming down to. It's just, especially when you look back at The Hobbit, like, that's amazing, and then that was so long ago, and now they're doing stuff like this, and it's like, wow, it's really impressive what they can do on TV now. That will have me wrapping it up. I'm going to say I hate you, Andy, for making me do this. And if anyone listened to this, I'm sorry, because it was terrible. And I was able to ramble for 16 odd minutes, which is impressive for me because I did not think I could do that. So we're going to wrap this up. If you have any questions or specific ideas, again, about what you want us to talk about, or please not just me, because that's not good. Feel free to email us our questions at DIYtherapy206@gmail.com, or hit us up at either Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And we'll be glad to answer or address those. If you have a specific one that you want specifically answered for you, we can do that, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a podcast one. Anyway, let's wrap this up with this disclaimer. This was maybe for educational purposes only. I was educated that I could do it, but I didn't do it well. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself. Also, I hate you, Andy.